Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. The most exciting moment of the Nongshim Cup has arrived. Shin Jinseo is playing against the best player from China, Wang Xinghao 9P. So the last game Shin Jinseo won against Yama Utah in a very convincing way. And today Shin Jinseo is playing as white. And here we have the game 13 of the Nongshim Cup. Wang Xinghao starts with a start point. Shin Jinseo plays the start point 3-4 and then start point. At this point, black plays the Keima defense, and here white approaches. Black plays the Keima, and white also plays the Keima enclosure, and black takes the remaining corner. White blocks, and black crawls, and we have a very normal Joseki that we have seen many times. And at this point, black decides to split. White pincers, and here black decides to simply tenuki and pincer the white stone. Of course, black can also think about something like the Keima, but of course that's just a different game. So now black decides to pincer, and white now plays the shoulder hit. This is also an AI move, right? So we can see both players have studied with AI in such an intense way. At this point, Wang Xinghao also plays out the AI response, which I think is very impressive, right? First of all, this is already a very weird looking AI move, right? But the fact that black knows to immediately attach here means that both players are very well prepared. White has many variations to reach equality, right? This is more of a choice. White can play the Hane on top with no problem. Black extends, white connects, black Hane, white blocks, and black connects. That's a cent table. White has to connect, and here black hops towards the corner. And we have a territory versus influence game. Of course, maybe Shin Jinseo does not like this variation because black gets a lot of territory, and territory is usually easier for humans to manage, but still an equal position. White can also extend down. This is actually the top AI recommendation. Black attaches, white extends, and here black blocks. White plays the 3-3 to protect the territory, and here black Hane on top, in which case white pretty much has to sacrifice the two stones, and therefore white cuts. Black has to squeeze white's liberty. White can Atari on top, and now we also have an equal position. Even if black manages to capture the two stones over here, white is very efficient on the outside, so this is still an equal position. In the actual game, white decides to play the Hane on the second line, which is also a great variation. Black pushes, and here white adds another move to take care of the corner. If white extends, which is also playable, black Hane, white Atari, black connects, and here white plays on the tiger's mouth, and black pushes towards the center. The result of this is that white was able to gain some territory, but black is also very comfortable towards the outside. In the actual game, Shin Jinseo wants to play very simple and drag this game into something he really likes, which is a very calm game where he can show his strength, especially when it comes to middle to late game. So early game, he just need to hold, and the late game, I mean, he's just the #1 in the world. So white Atari and black Hane on top. Obviously, because white adds a move here, black cannot allow white to extend up. That makes a lot of sense. And at this point, Shin Jinseo plays out the AI move. Black responds to that once, and here Shin Jinseo plays the Hane. Black Atari, black takes, and white extends, protecting some of the potential over here. Black Atari, white connects, and here black extends first, creating some aji in the corner, and then black plays out the Keima. This is a very necessary move, otherwise there's a very serious cutting point. So black had to spend a move in the center, not only make the group very comfortable, but also exert influence towards the center. White now jumps, and here black decides to kick. White does not want to extend right away because all of a sudden you'll be under very fierce attack like this, right? So we can see white is in a very tough spot. So white plays it very light and therefore plays the big Keima, trying to destroy the territory that black could have here. And the next move, black pincers from behind, and Shin Jinseo plays the Hane first, that's a sente, and at this point Shin Jinseo attaches into the corner, trying to either sacrifice this stone or start some skirmish. Depending on what happens in the corner, then white can find ways to deal with the 3 stones on the outside. Black Hane, white cuts, and here black extends, and here comes their first fight. So black extends down, trying to kill everything. Of course, white has to fight this. White blocks on the second line. Black now jumps on the second line, right? So here, any other move would not work. If you just extend, white plays out the tiger's mouth, and this is why it kills black. Of course, black cannot accept that. So black needs to save the 2 stones first. White Atari, black obviously has to connect. And here, Shin Jinseo plays a very calm and solid move, right? Shin Jinseo's style is just like this. In the early game, especially in the early game, he tries to choose the simplest and the most solid variation where he knows that he won't be extremely behind, or the game will be more or less equal. A more fierce variation or greedy variation is for white to Kosumi in the corner, trying to make the corner alive and fight the two groups on the outside. But what Shin Jinseo was worried about is black attaches over here. The idea of attaching is trying to ladder or trying to capture the stone over here. So white has to connect that. But here black can play the Hane towards the outside, trying to hurt these two stones. Of course, white's going to retaliate by trying to attack the three stones on the right. So black Hane, white now has the Tetsuji, that is the wedge. Black Atari, white cuts, and black takes. Here white can extend first, forcing black to connect. And at this point, white extends on the second line. Black kicks, and white goes for the ko. So white throws in, black takes, and white Atari from behind. And this becomes a ko. It looks very difficult for black, but actually black can afford to lose the ko, but white cannot. So here, the correct move is for black to add an extra move to completely control the center. If white wants to fight a ko, then black has a warehouse of ko threat over here to fight the ko. If white takes, then black can find a lot of compensation back from the corner. So this would still be a very chaotic game moving forward, and this is a very equal position actually. All right. So in the actual game, Shin Jinseo says no to all of that and just plays out the tiger's mouth. Of course, black has to respond to that by cutting in the corner and just capture the corner. White turns, black extends, and white crawls at the 2-2. Obviously, that forces black to Atari, and here white attaches. Black Hane, and now white cuts. So a more precise move here is for Wang Xinghao to actually clamp on the second line. And if Wang Xinghao could find this move, then he will be slightly ahead in this game. Because when white extends, black Hane, white turns, and here black extends, we can see even if black looks miserable with a bunch of second line and first line moves, the thing is, he doesn't have to add moves in the corner, and there's not much Aji in the corner, right? So these guys are just clean dead, which means black gained a lot of territory. Of course, white has a bit of influence towards the center, but it's kind of canceled out by black's group over here, right? So white's value on the outside is not so clear. This is what Wang Xinghao should have played. However, Wang Xinghao played Hane, which is very, it makes a lot of sense, right? It's just very intuitive. White cuts, black connects, white extends, and here, of course, black has to take care of the Liberty fight by playing the Hane here. So we can see locally this becomes 4 versus 3. White Atari, black connects. Of course, connecting is a choice by Wang Xinghao, right? Wang Xinghao knows that Shin Jinseo is such a monster when it comes to late game and middle game, right? And the best way for him to win is to try to drag Shin Jinseo into a fight. That's why Wang Xinghao connected. Wang Xinghao could have also extended back. When white takes, black can peep first and then play the one space extension. I think for players who are more who are a bit less aggressive, this is totally this is a totally acceptable plan by black, right? When we play here, we can see these guys are kind of in trouble, and black is just pretty solid. Black has 3 giant pieces of, not giant, but 3 solid pieces of territory, and the game will still be very equal. But Wang Xinghao obviously does not want to play like that. He decides to connect, which makes a lot of sense. White Hane, black jumps out, and here white connects. Black peeps, that's a sente, and here black plays the one space extension, cutting off the connection here, threatening white's 5 stones. Shin Jinseo plays the second line tiger's mouth, very well played. This move allows white to gain a lot of eye space and therefore the safety. Black now plays the jump towards the outside. So here, if black plays something like this, right, which is a very normal looking move, right, trying to enclose white and also build a bit of moyo in the center. However, white is going to play a move over here by blocking on the third line. We can see all of a sudden, black has a problem to deal with. If black plays somewhere else, though, white can later on still have this kind of very annoying Tetsuji. If black clamps, then white is going to extend on at the 1-2. And we can see all of a sudden the Liberty fight is going to be white kills black, because black cannot fill in at the 1-1 because my exchange. And of course, if black takes, then white has a very, very comfortable crawl here, and that gains a lot of territory, also squeezing the territory away from black. So this is a very, very annoying local follow-up, right? And that's the extra value that white gets by blocking over here. So blocking here is a huge move that black cannot miss, and therefore Wang Xinghao plays the jump to prevent that from happening. White now obviously adds another move here. This is very important to add extra security and also aiming at the two black stones over here. Black obviously spends another move, making sure that white cannot, for example, white cannot Atari and just connect, right? And all of a sudden, these guys are dead. So the double tiger's mouth is very, very big in terms of value. And at this point, white pushes, black extends, and here white plays out the big Keima, trying to attack the 5 stones in the center. Black jumps, and here white bumps into black, black extends, and white plays the Hane on the second line. So here black can directly go for the profits by cutting here. White Atari, black cuts, and white jumps from the outside, trying to follow up on the attack. So the idea is for black to claim a bunch of profits first, right? We can see with this exchange, black gained a lot of territory in the corner. So when white attacks black, then black can go for a counter attack, right? Attaching here and try to separate white. So this would still be a very chaotic game, and I think this is this is a good plan for black, right? We take the territory first, and then we drag white into a very chaotic fight. I think that also puts a lot of pressure on Shin Jinseo. In the actual game, Wang Xinghao got a bit impatient, and he, of course, he has prepared a lot for this moment, right? And he definitely consulted with all of his teammates, with everyone who has played against Shin Jinseo, and they probably came to a consensus where, and it's not like a secret, right? It's really like everybody knows that when you drag Shin Jinseo into a fight, that's probably the best chance you have to win against Shin Jinseo. And therefore, Wang Xinghao just says, you know what, I'm going to follow up with that plan, jump out, and just drag Shin Jinseo into a very fierce fight. Strategically speaking, this makes a lot of sense. White now pushes and cuts, and a fight breaks out. Black extends towards the center, and white pushes on the 4th line. This is a must-play move, or else these guys are going to die. Black plays the Kosumi, that's the shape move, and white spends another move extending here, making sure he's safe. Black now pushes, and white Atari. Black now turns from the outside. The idea for black to maneuver like this is trying to capture the 2 white stones in the center in a very big way, right? A move like this is not very good because white doesn't really care anymore about the life and death of the 2 stones. Even if you manage to capture white, the way you capture white would be too inefficient. The amount of territory that black is able to gain here is not enough to win this game. That's why Wang Xinghao decides to turn over here and give the tough question back to Shin Jinseo. Like, do you wanna escape here or not? Right? If you don't escape, then I'm gonna, for example, I'm gonna keep playing these type of moves, right? And eventually, I might gain like 30, 40 points in the center, right? And it makes these kind of moves makes these stones harder. It's harder and harder for them to escape, and that's gonna cause white a problem. In the actual game, Shin Jinseo says, you know what, I don't want to think about where to invade later. Let me just drag these guys out and make your center vanish completely. So this is very aggressive by Shin Jinseo, but of course this makes the game a lot more chaotic. Black Hane, white extends at the Tengen, and the next move I really like by Wang Xinghao. This is a very well played move in my opinion. Of course, AI does not completely approve this type of move. It thinks that we should probably like connect in the center or something, fixing the weakness. But I mean, this is just too AI. It's too slow for humans, right? It doesn't put enough pressure on Shin Jinseo. So what Wang Xinghao played makes a lot of sense. Cutting off here and putting maximum pressure on the dragon. Shin Jinseo plays the turn. This move comes with a lot of calculation. At first glance, it looks like white is almost dead. Like there's no eye. I don't see any ways out. But Shin Jinseo reads super far here. He plays the turn on the 3rd line, and that's it, the vital move to make this group survive. Of course, black now cuts off the connection. White cannot answer this because the center is in trouble. So Shin Jinseo spends a move over here, looking at the weakness that black has and also trying to counterattack the 2 stones. Black plays the tiger's mouth, white pulls the stone back, and here black plays the Keima in the center, enclosing white once again. And at this point, Shin Jinseo shows his monstrous calculation skills, and all of a sudden we can see there's a lot of tsumego to do inside this corner. Black on it, and here white cuts, and black connects. And at this point, when Shin Jinseo plays the Kosumi, we can see that Shin Jinseo is is absolutely fine. Like this dragon has no problem because there's a very big miai going on right now. Of course, first of all, white is trying to hone it on the first line, so on the second line to connect the dragon back home. Black can absolutely not allow that because it's a lot of territory as well, right? But if black goes for this type of move to separate white, then inside the corner, white has a very nice Tetsuji. So white can throw in first, black has the capture, and here white can extend at the 1-2. So this is going to be using a Tetsuji called the Golden Rooster, and black is it's a very tough situation for black. Black has to go for the Liberty fight, right? In which case, white can extend on the first line, right? Trying to basically kill black here. Black needs to spend a move, and all of a sudden we can see there is a very interesting double Golden Rooster, right? Both these groups are amazing. They're like coordinating with each other. So here white can go for the kill, and black has to connect over here, planning to basically squeeze at the 1-1 to kill white. So when white plays here, then black can Atari, right? But after this exchange, all of a sudden we see white can play the tiger's mouth, and there's a Golden Rooster over here because black cannot fill in here, and black cannot fill in here. If you fill in here, then that's a self-Atari. I can capture. So we can see that black pretty much lost the 4 stones over here, which means the dragon has revived, and also with points. So there is a very good tactic here for Shin Jinseo for him to get out of trouble. So this move pretty much made this dragon alive. All right, so Wang Xinghao definitely realizes that there's a Tetsuji inside the corner, right? And then he doesn't quite know yet what to do. Therefore, he plays a move in the center, trying to attack the 4 white stones. White turns in the center, black plays the tiger's mouth, and white attaches. Black extends, white pushes. So with this sequence, Shin Jinseo managed to make this group escape and, connect back home, right? But what Wang Xinghao got in the process was this tiger's mouth, right? This tiger's mouth really strengthened the formation here, and this is putting a lot of pressure on the dragon. Of course, there's still like a miai where white is going to connect, and also the tactics in the corner. So the next move, Wang Xinghao decides to play the San San. So this is a, from a tactical point of view, this is not a bad move. This is a good move actually, except this is actually a very big mistake because the order that Wang Xinghao executed this, right? What Wang Xinghao was looking at was definitely that his Hane here is a Sente, right? Because with this move, we can see if white responds, then this is cut off, which means black can go back and capture here and make sure there's nothing in the corner. When white Atari, then black can Atari from behind and extend, and we can see this dragon is just dead. So that is the idea. Wang Xinghao's thought that playing the Hane here is a Sente, which is true. Like he should have played here, right? But he left this Sente. He didn't play it right away, and that's the mistake. He decides to play the 3-3 first, and then he planned to play the Hane later, right? And it's because of this execution, the order of execution error, this move actually is a terrible mistake because here Shin Jinseo has a brilliant Tetsuji. This is a very good Tetsuji to fix everything in the corner. So first of all, if black pushes, then we can Atari and connect, and we can see there's nothing. Black is just dead inside. Similarly, so there's nothing in the corner really, right? If black connects, white connects. Okay, everything that white has is connected, and there's not much black can do in the corner. Then you might be wondering, hey, what about we play the Hane right now? When you play the Hane right now, here white can actually block, right? So this is exactly what happened in the game. With this block, the question is, okay, well, I cut you off here, so how come I can't just go back and kill you, right? I get rid of the corner Tetsuji. Isn't your dragon just dead? Well, it's not, because this tiger's mouth is really helping out white here. White now has a Tetsuji, that is to attach. When black pushes, white cuts. Black, so first of all, black can Atari because I can Atari and Atari. And we can see the top just got killed. If black extends, then white can connect. Looks like black has a Tetsuji here. However, white can squeeze here first. The idea is that if you play here, then white can cut off the 2 stones with the Kosumi. Okay, so these 2 stones cannot get home. But before white answers that, white can actually squeeze here first. That's where the reading becomes so intense and so important. If black connects, then white can fix the cutting point here. When you try to play the Kosumi, obviously I can block because I have prepared a tiger's mouth for you. If black Atari, then white will simply play the empty triangle. We can see that these guys are already connected. If black goes for this, it doesn't work because white connects and it creates a miai of cutting. So this is definitely going to be white kills black over here. So because of this, because white has an attach over here that is so fatal against black's group on top, this variation doesn't work for black. So how should Wang Xinghao have played here? The correct way for Wang Xinghao to play is to play the Hane first. And that's where he kind of messed up the order. You need to play this Hane first. Right? Now if white turns, then we can go and kill white. Right? Because you don't have this tiger's mouth exchanging with my 3/3 here, then this dragon does have to worry about life and death. This is quite dangerous. Right? If you cut, then I can pierce through. Right? So we can see that you don't have this attached because you don't have the tiger's mouth stone here. So the correct way for white to play is to actually immediately execute the Aji in the corner. So it's going to go like this, right? We have seen this before, and we see that white now, this dragon is fine by capturing the 4 stones over here. However, of course, this is a big loss for black at this point. The way black can still manage to reach equality is now by playing the San San. If white turns over here, then black is going to connect in the corner. And all of a sudden, we can see the tiger's mouth doesn't work anymore, right? Because I can push and cut. You can't really connect here. So at this point, when black peeps here, white can play something like the tiger's mouth. Therefore, white has to capture the 2 stones, in which case black can get some compensation by crawling into the corner. So black can gain a bit of compensation by destroying partially white's corner. And this would still be a closed game moving forward. Now, if white goes for the fight by blocking here, black connects. We said the tiger's mouth obviously doesn't work. But my viewers are like, well, I can't play tiger's mouth. Can I kill you in the corner? Well, you can't really do that because black can cut on the outside. White connects, black blocks, white Atari first, black connects, and here white goes for the Liberty fight. The best move is to squeeze black Liberty like this, but black can play the tiger's mouth. White connects, and here black plays out the eye making move. So the reason you don't want to squeeze here is because this leads to a ko. So white needs to connect first. Black makes the eye, white Hane to make sure black can live, and black now squeezes, and white has no choice but go for a ko fight, which is obviously not acceptable for white, because if white loses this ko, then everything here just got killed, right? Or almost got killed. Like white can still resist, but like, I mean, it's miserable. Like white cannot do this. So white cannot go for the kill, right? Which means that at this point, white has to allow black to get this move, which is a very big move. So if the game plays out like this, Wang Xinghao still has a big chance in this game. All right, so Wang Xinghao really just messed up a small detail, and it turns out to be very fatal here. Wang Xinghao decides to play the San San, but after Shin Jinseo found the AI recommended top move, all of a sudden this is very, very difficult for Wang Xinghao. In the actual game, a black Hane, white blocks, and black decides to push here, aiming at the cutting point. White fixes that problem, and here black goes back to Atari here. The idea is to try to kill white. Because the corner Aji disappeared because of this move, white has to figure out how to break out. Here white has 2 ways to break out. In the actual game, Shin Jinseo chose the Kosumi, which is also good. But also this is a move that could end the game right away, right? With this attach, there's no way for black to resist, right? The exact same sequence I talked about is still here, right? So I think, yeah, white can kick here first, right? Preventing the Kosumi. And there's a miai. I'm either going to capture you in the center, or I'm going to connect here and capture the top. Yeah, so if Shin Jinseo plays out like this, I think the game would end in a few moves. Shin Jinseo chose a different path, which is also okay. So he plays the kick, and black blocks, and white squeezes in the center. This creates a ko. If black connects, then white will immediately start a ko. When black takes, we can see this corner has a lot of co-threats. So any move that white plays is pretty much a co-threat. If black gets rid of the co, then white can also kill the 4 stones over here, right? We can see the dragon just revived. The corner is still dead, right? And this is just a losing game for black. All right, so in the actual game, black decides to choose a different path, right? That is not for certain losing. So he chose this path because he sees that the code definitely doesn't work because he doesn't have enough co-threats. This is a warehouse of co-threats. So black Atari, white connects. Black now also connects to prevent the double Atari. White cuts with an Atari and black Atari from behind. White captures and black now connects. So it looks pretty good on the surface because black managed to connect in this way and the dragon that Shin Jinseo has is still in trouble. So here Shin Jinseo has 2 ways to continue this game. One way is to sacrifice the dragon, right? So white here can simply take over here. If black plays the tiger's mouth, right? So black needs to play out the tiger's mouth, otherwise white can Atari and capture, and then there's a ko over here. So if black fixes that, then white can Atari, forcing black to connect, and at this point white can extend towards the outside. After white extends towards the outside, there's going to be a liberty fight between this dragon and black's dragon in the center. And the result of this is probably going to be black kills white. But even if black manages to kill this entire dragon, first of all, when we look at the left side, I mean, this is a huge piece of territory connecting to the corner, right? So Shin Jinseo already has a ton of territory over here, not to say this is a liberty fight, right? The problem with a liberty fight is that you have to play a bunch of moves inside your territory to capture white's dragon, right? And then there's a bunch of senteis in the way, like white's Atari here is a sentei, Atari here is a sentei. So at the end of the day, this is going to be a big losing game for Wang Xinghao as well, even if he managed to capture this dragon. So that's a very clear way for Shin Jinseo to win as well. But under time pressure, Shin Jinseo is choosing the second way. That is something that he understands better. That is to just save the dragon. So he Atari over here, black Atari, white takes, and here black comes back and connect this very fatal problem. If white continues with the kill, then first of all, white can throw in and then Atari. So here, black cannot connect. If you connect, well, there's the throw in and then there's the Atari. So black cannot connect anymore, right? So here, when white Atari, black has to Atari first, but this Atari doesn't really work because white can just take here. And we can see it's collapsing for black, right? So first of all, I still have this throw in. When you fix the throw in, I can take the ko. First of all, I can take the ko, not to say I can also extend and just claim this first and then go into a liberty fight. So doesn't matter how Shin Jinseo plays here, it's going to be more or less a winning game. And Shin Jinseo chose the the safest way moving forward. Wang Xinghao decides to connect here because he knows he's not going to win this ko. There's a ton of ko threats over here. And here Shin Jinseo plays the throw in. Black takes, white Atari, black connects, and here white Atari on the first line. And we can see Shin Jinseo managed to get the dragon back to safety, connecting to home while capturing a bunch of points in the process. And now we can see the problem with this move is that this is a purely extra 1 point for white inside white's territory. And white has played a move over here, a beautiful tiger's mouth that's hurting the ice space that black has over here. So at this point, Shin Jinseo is having a winning position where he's leading by he's leading by 2 komis, I think, right? So yeah, so he's on the board, he's 7 points ahead, right? And black still has to pay komi. So that's how big the lead is. And for them, it at this point it's very, very difficult. All right. But Wang Xinghao, this is a very important game, so Wang Xinghao did not want to give up right away. So he peeps first, white connects, and here black jumps over here, trying to claim the whole thing over here. And white plays the 1 space extension. Very solid move, coming into black's territory slowly. Black pushes white Hane, and black plays the Hane. He wants to see if he can disconnect white in this way. However, white plays the double Hane. All this is very simple for Shin Jinseo. So here, if you go for the cut, by Atari, white connects, black Atari, and here white can Atari from the other side. When you capture in the center, then white can cut like this. Black connects, white pushes, and here black has 2 options. One is to give up the 4 stones by Ataring here, in which case white can Atari from behind, and we can see obviously you can't capture because I can squeeze Atari. So these guys are dead, If black retaliates by cutting here and say, hey, this whole thing is going to die, well, unfortunately, white is going to peep first and Atari over here and say, hey, you guys are all dead. And that is the end of the game. Doesn't matter what black gets over here. So black can't even cut. If black spends a move to make sure the dragon is okay, then white can also spend a move here to make sure the little dragon is okay. If black cuts, white turns over here. And I think most of my viewers can make this group alive safely. Well, I can't say all of my viewers, but most of my viewers. All right. So I think those are the variations. Now, if black says, you know what, I'm going to take here, then white's going to squeeze first. Black connects, white Atari, black connects, and here white turns over here. We can see black is broken into pieces, right? So black wanted to kill white, but guess who kills who, right? White turns over here, probably both sides are dead. So that also does not work. Right? That's why Wang Xinghao did not go for this struggle, because it doesn't work tactically, unfortunately. So in the actual game, Wang Xinghao goes for the final fight. He plays the wedge over here, hoping to capture this entire corner. White takes, and here black Atari. At this point, Shin Jinseo did some calculation, and he decided to not do any endgame. He wants to end the game right now. He pushes out, black takes, white connects over here. Of course, AI would tell black to immediately fix all the problems over here. But when white Atari here, that's also game over, because black didn't really gain anything from the previous sequence. Therefore, Wang Xinghao says, you know what, I'm going to play the tiger's mouth and fix all the problem and claim all the profits. The problem with claiming all the profits is when white turns here, black is in trouble. Black plays the Hane. Here, Shin Jinseo spend one move. After black exchanges one move, he plays another time Suji. So 2 times Sujis that allows him to get 2 times 60 seconds. And he was calculating what's going on in the center. So after the second time Suji, he decided to cut in the center. Rock solid calculation. This move really shows that Shin Jinseo is very confident with his reading skills. And in fact, he's accurate here. There's no way for black to escape now. In the actual game, black jumps, white Atari, black extends, and here white connects in the center. Let's see the final fight. Black obviously wants to connect in the center, and white now pushes. So here, if black plays the Hane, then white's going to Atari and then Atari. This is all forced. Black has to extend, and here white can connect like this, right? Even if white connects like this, we can see there's a miai of pushing here and also pushing here. If white wedges, then white can also get out like this, right? Even if black has to throw in, it doesn't really do much, because white can still have a miai to connect back home. So simply blocking here does not work. If black extends, then white has a Tasuji, that is to play the Kosumi here, right? If black wants to disconnect white, black has to Hane, and here white is going to play the tiger's mouth. Black has to throw in first, and then Atari. Of course, here you cannot fall into this trap, that would be a joke. Then black is going to Atari, right? But here white can simply squeeze Atari from behind. When black takes, white turns, black takes. Looks like it's very beautiful for black. However, the whole thing over here is dead, and that's also the end of the game. So Hane doesn't work, extending doesn't work. What about black playing the extension here? Well, white will simply Atari and then connect. When black plays the Hane, here white can simply play the Hane to kill the top. Black cuts, white now has a beautiful Tsuji in the center. And we can see this is going to be white kills black, because let's just play out all the liberty moves. And at this point, we can see black only has 1 liberty left. So this is, white is quicker by 1 liberty. So Shin Jinseo read all that out under so much pressure, and the 60 seconds Boyomi. Very impressive. Now in the actual game, Wang Xinghao couldn't find anything better, and he plays out the jump over here. However, that's also, that's the exact same reason, right? With black extension is the same as that came out here. So white plays the Hane, and then white plays the Atari. And at this point, Wang Xinghao decided to resign. And he resigned because the exact same reason we just talked about. White has a Tsuji to wedge in the center, and white is going to win this liberty fight by 1 liberty. And therefore, there's no point in continuing. Like, the center got captured, right? So I think a lot of my viewers can win against Wang Xinghao at this position. Yeah, so it's a very simple game for Shin Jinseo now. So throughout this game, we can see that both players are so top notch, right? Like they're just showing that the world why they're the top players. At the first 50 moves, I would say it was just dead equal AI moves from both sides, right? They have both prepared super well. And towards the middle game, Wang Xinghao decided to drag Shin Jinseo into a fight. And it turns out that Shin Jinseo was performed really well in these fights in the middle game. And therefore, the game has been just equal for a very, very long time until Wang Xinghao kind of just made a very small mistake in terms of the order of execution. Should have played the Hane first and then play the 3-3. But he played the 3-3 first, thinking that it's going to be the same. However, it wasn't the same. When Shin Jinseo plays the Tiger's Mouth, that move all just pretty much ended the game. From that point on, Wang Xinghao went for a fight, but it just doesn't work because black doesn't have enough co-threats. And therefore, Shin Jinseo managed to get the dragon back and capture a bunch of points in the process, where Wang Xinghao didn't really gain anything except just making this big dragon survive. So eventually Wang Xinghao went for a fight here, but of course it wasn't really a fight because it was more like Shin Jinseo slaughtering Wang Xinghao here with very precise calculation. Right, the end was very clean by Shin Jinseo, shows that he's very confident with his reading skills. So at this point, we have only one game left. It's going to be Shin Jinseo versus Weiqi, which is going to happen very soon. I think it's going to be tomorrow. I will have my commentary out on time. So make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on that commentary. Of course, if you enjoy this commentary, make sure to also like the video. That really helps me out in terms of the algorithm. As always, thank you very much for tuning in. I will see you guys in the next one.